Hello and welcome to this brushstrokes tutorial on how to use the gridding method for your portraiture. In this tutorial I'm going to show you how to work out how to enlarge your picture to fit the space and surface you're working on, and how to ensure that you're getting accurate detail. For beginners, I always recommend two things. The first thing is, if you are being new to portraiture, choose an image where your subject is looking straight on at the camera. This will just help you whilst you're learning how to put in proportions and where everything sits in relation to the face, because you're not having to think about it coming from a complex angle. The other thing is, if you are using pencil and you're doing a sketch, make your picture black and white. Just make your life easy for yourself, especially whilst you're sorting out where your tonal values are, how you put them in and how you plot them out. So just to recap, tip number one, make sure your subject's looking towards the camera whilst you're starting off with your portraits. Tip number two, if doing a sketch or a black and white, make your image in black and white using some editing software and print that off. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure how big our resource image is. So I'm going to use inches just because they're a little bit wider and easier to use, but if you would like to use centimetres, there's not a problem. We're going to start off using an HB pencil. This is because an HB pencil is really light, so it's not going to be too dark or heavy. It also means it's not going to blend too much because it's not really dark, so you're not going to sort of smudge it by doing anything. So HB pencils are quite good for using for architecture and landscape. So we're going to use the HB to do our grids. So looking at this image falls short of 6 inches, but that's okay. I'm just going to round it up to 6 anyway. Then, to make sure that you can see on the camera the grid, I'm going to use a white charcoal pencil, but you guys can use an HB pencil at home and you'll still be able to see it. So I'm going to go along the bottom and mark every inch. And I'm going to make a little note at the bottom here that is 6 inches across. Then going from the top down, it is 7.5 inches. I'm going to keep it at 7.5. 7.5 inches. Now I'm going to go along each edge of the picture, marking every inch. Okay, then once you've got in your marks, you can now line them up. So the first mark, for example, on the left-hand side is going to go down to this first mark at the bottom of the left-hand side and draw up your grid. Okay, so then your grid will look something like this. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 squares going down and this half one at the bottom. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 squares going across. Perfect. So now I want to enlarge this image slightly so it fits better onto this surface. What you can do is we can use our trusty maths to work this out. So I can already see that if I tried to double the 6 inches, it's not going to fit on this bit of paper because this bit of paper is not 12 inches. So instead, I'm going to enlarge it by 1.5 times. So if your maths is as good as mine, you'll need a calculator for this, but otherwise you can just do it in your head if it's better than mine. So 6 inches times 1.5 is going to be 9 across. And then 7.5 inches from along the top times by 1.5 is going to be 11.25. You could just round that up to 11.3. So bit easier. So our new rectangle that we're going to draw out here is going to be 9 inches across and 11.3 down. So I'm going to grab my HB pencil. So I've got my HB pencil here. I'm going to press a little bit harder just so that it shows up better on camera, but you want to keep your lines really, really light. This just means that when you come to rubbing out your grid later on, you're not going to have loads of marks on the page. So keep your line nice and light, but as I said, I'm going to press a little bit harder. I'm just going to move my ruler to center the image, and I'm going to make sure that my ruler is running parallel to the edge of the paper to keep it straight. Okay, so now I've got my rectangle drawn out. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to go along and mark out my grid lines, but this time I'm going to do it every 1.5 inches because I have enlarged it by 1.5. So rather than going every 1 inch, I'm going to go every 1.5. Again, if your maths is better than mine, you can just do this in your head, just adding the numbers as you go along. But for me, I know my maths is a bit shaky, so I'm just going to measure it out each time to make sure I get it right. Okay, now I've done all those marks, I'm going to draw the lines up to make the grid. Again, keep your light pencil really light. I'm going to press harder just so that the camera picks it up, but do keep your pencil pressure really light. Okay, now I've got my grid. I am now going to number this and letter this so it will help me better copy it. Okay, so now I want to copy each of the squares. So the idea of this is rather than taking on one big problem all in one go, which can be a little, intimidating, we can now completely take this apart into small little sections. So I can copy each square. So you're just going to focus on that square. A top tip for you is I often think about my square as small fractions. So for example, the top of this hairline comes down roughly about 1/3 along in this square. And so then I can go from that square, go right, I need 3A, and go from 1/3, roughly work out 1/3 of top from that square and copy it out. For your outline, you want to work with a 3B pencil this time. This is because it blends better. So when you come to blending your tone in, you can blend your outline into the surface, which will make it look sort of less cartoony. So use a 3B pencil. Again, keep your pencil pressure really light, and this will help you a lot when it comes to the drawing and if you want to correct any mistakes. Again, just so that it picks up on camera, I'm going to press a little bit harder. So I'm going to start off with the hairline, and then I'm going to sketch in the face and the neck. Okay, now I've got in her hair outline, her face outline, and her neck and shoulders. I'm now going to use the grid to help me get in her features. What I do first is, especially when I'm doing the eyes, I want to work out where each corner fits in the grid, both along the top and along the bottom. And also I want to know where the top of the eye fits in, as well as the bottom and the pupil. So using the reference, I mark out where everything should go in relativeness to each other. Okay. I'll mark out the pupil as well, same for eyebrows. Okay, so now I've done that, I can see where it fits in within the box, where it comes in, which fraction it is, and I'm going to use this to copy it onto here. Okay, now I've plotted in the eyes, I'm going to do the nose and the mouth. Don't worry if you look a bit outlined and scary at this point, because you are just doing outline. It's the tone which will give it real sort of a real feel to it. Okay, so now I've got in her main features, I'm going to do what's called blocking in the face. And basically, I'm just going to work out where her main areas of shadows and highlights are. So this is going to really help me when I come to putting tone in. So having a look here, for example, you can see this shadowy shape that defines her cheekbone. You have her clavicle here, and the bits around the nose and around the eye. So what you can always do is, if you find it hard to draw them, you can just draw around them on your resource image. Just plot in those areas of tone. Which will then help you in a bit, and I'm going to put the ear in as well. Okay, so now I have marked in the outlines, her features, and I've started putting in some shapes to help me plot out where the areas of tone are. Once you've done this and you're happy that you've plotted everything out that you need to help you put in some guidelines, we can rub away the grid. Because I've pressed a bit harder, some of my lines will probably still show, but that's okay. Because you've kept your lines nice and light, it should come away easily. Okay, you can also see where my rubber's been a bit dirty and it's smudged. What you can do to clean your rubber, just use some space to rub it clean, and then just go back over any of those smudges. Okay, and then just to tidy it up, I do what's kind of like, called joining the dots. So where the lines have rubbed out, I'm just going to use my 3B pencil just to tidy up those areas. Okay, and there you have it. That is how you can use the grid method to work from a reference photo and get your proportions in accurately. To see how I apply tone to this portrait, watch my next video on my YouTube channel and you can see how I use different pencils and different charcoals and chalk pencils to get in the contrasting tonal values. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you again soon. Okay, bye!